From the creators of Off the Record, one of the most exclusive, invite-only events for revenue leaders, GetAccept is now bringing these conversations and insights on the record. This is the podcast where revenue leaders share their biggest challenges and how they overcame them. And here's your host, Morgan Ingram.
Hey everyone, it's your host Morgan J. Ingram here with another episode of On the Record podcast, where we unpack real stories from real sales leaders. Now, today I'm excited to bring in Jason, who has come from a SDR role to an SVP of Sales role over the 10 years that he's been with the same company. So really some amazing insights that I learned today in this conversation about leadership growth. And if you're a individual contributor listening in, this is how you can do it. So he breaks down how to get earned buy-in from every single level, from the reps all the way to C-suite, especially if you're starting off as an SDR in an org to a VP. There's a lot of things that you're going to go through. We also dive into the experience of navigating challenging relationships and how to approach it with transparency, but also with clarity. And then the most important thing is how to maintain professionalism in tough situations. Because we know sometimes you might want to be like, I want to say this, but it's like, it's a better route to say this. So Jason shares why he believes the fundamentals that he learns in SDR helped him in his long-term success as a sales leader. So if you right now are listening in saying, I want to be a sales leader one day, this is a perfect roadmap and blueprint for you to execute to get to that level. Okay, we've had a lot of Zoom chats, but now we're having a podcast recording. I'm super excited to do this with Jason. Just a straight hustler here. And that's actually going to be my first question before we get into the challenges, because I noticed that you started off as an SDR and you have rise through the ranks to an SVP of Sales. So my question to you is, how have you remained sane to get from an SDR to an SVP of Sales? How did you not want to just be like, I'm done with this?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I didn't even really have a choice, because when I was an SDR, like, I was one of the first hires at the company. So there was two founders, and they brought me on because they knew me from a previous organization, and they said, hey, you're the best sales kind of whiz we know. You're a young, hungry guy. Come do some prospecting and some cold calling for us and kind of generate meetings for me. So I'm like, sure. So I was almost just started off doing like one of my mentors a favor and generating meetings for him. And then when I started to outwork him, and I was like, well, hey, I could just, you're too busy doing like CEO things. I can just close my own deals. And then I started just closing my own deals, and now I'm the AE. And then he was like, hey, you're doing so great. Now you need to replicate that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just go hire myself an SDR. Now I'm the manager, and now I'm the sales director. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, you're the VP of Sales. Now you got a team of people. So he made me the VP of Sales. Prematurely, I would say. I was very young. I think it was like early 20s. It was my first rodeo, so it's not like I went and applied for this role. It was kind of like organically I grew into it, and he empowered me and gave me the title and gave me the role, and I took it and ran with it. So, here I am 10 years later being at this company. That's all I was really trying to do, is replicate what I did. I came in, was an SDR, learned the ropes, learned the hard way, became an AE, did all that grind until I was bored, and that's kind of the sales life. Now I just go, hey, let's try to repeat that as many times as possible, and give others that same opportunity and give them everything that I learned in those roles. And that's what really keeps me going now, because I'm still at the same company selling the same product, and we're here for 10 years. I got to find something to keep me interested here, right? So, building others up and giving them knowledge and insight, and seeing the young guys in their early 20s get into sales and start their first job and start their career. Like, I love that. And I still think sales is like an underrated career that, not a lot of people take advantage of, I would say. You don't have to have all the accolades and degrees and, bachelors. Like, you just got to be good with your voice and have a good work ethic, and anything is possible.
It is. That's the great thing about sales, is that you can truly take advantage of the moment and capitalize on it, and it's a learning game, right? You can always learn to get better, which is the key. And speaking of learning, that's what we're here today, is to learn from you. And so you mentioned that you got into a VP of sales role very early, right, in your career, and there's probably a lot of things that you saw that were great and a lot of things you're like, this was not so great. So, like, if you had to name just some challenges as we start here in this conversation, what were they, and we'll unpack it from there.
Yeah, I think early on, seeing that you go from being customer facing and just dealing with customer stuff, client stuff, which I love that, right? I'll do the same thing every day over and over, do this. I love that. But then you get into the leadership side of it, and as your company grows, there's other leaders, other departments that don't have the same mentality. They don't have the same, they're especially at a software company, right? Like, I'm dealing with tech guys and developers and infrastructure people, and then you're just like, whoa, there's a whole other can of I don't know if we can swear on here, but there's a whole other can of shit to deal with. And it's like, wow, like, that's what I tell some of the young guys, that, hey, I want to get into, I want to be a VP one day, I want to be a manager. I'm like, yeah, be careful what you wish for, because clients, sales, demos, numbers, all repeatable, predictable, scalable. Mm-hmm. Once you get into people management and being a VP and executives and leadership and that type of stuff, there's people that are unpredictable, right? Like, it's a level of stress that you just have to kind of deal with and get through, and things take longer. And that's the biggest thing probably early on, and even now still, is getting buy-in. And I think that's back to the sales process. You got to get buy-in on the demo. You got to get buy-in from the client. But, with me being so young and inexperienced and, having a prior relationship with my CEO, it was me kind of getting out of this light that he saw me in and getting buy-in and having him trust that I know what I'm doing on a larger scale, right? And then the other leaders that come on board, like, who's this young guy, right? Like, who's this guy? And I think just getting buy-in from leadership, that they can trust what you're doing, that you're going to be able to try things, fail at things, and there's a lot of failing at things. There's a lot of experiments that you got to run. And then there's the other side, getting buy-in from your reps. Nobody's going to listen to you or get coached by you if you've kind of never been there, done that. I think that all those years that I spent selling, and actually I was a player coach for a while too, right? As I was building up my team, I was still selling deals. So I was right there side by side. They knew what I was capable of.
They saw it in real time.
Exactly, right? So, they see, I'm like, hey, if you're not going to close this deal or do what I need you to do, I'll do it myself. I'll do it better. So it's getting buy-in from your reps, because they got to be able to follow you into battle, into war. And then getting buy-in from leadership and executives, and just being able to, have the confidence and kind of get out of those holes and try things and get up and fail. And, again, especially in a business that, we scaled this thing from 0 to 25 mil of ARR. And, throughout those times, just different people, challenges, things that, industry, internally, all these different things that we have to kind of hurdle over. So I think one of the biggest challenges, to wrap that up, was getting buy-in. And I think that applies on all levels, executive level, rep level, and it just goes back to relating to the individual sales process. Because even on that first cold call, you call somebody, you got to get buy-in from that gatekeeper. They got to introduce you and get you on to the next step, right? You got to get buy-in from the next person, the influencer, the decision maker. So it's almost like life is about getting buy-in from people.
I mean, it is. It is. That's literally the epicenter of it. So let's talk about this. Buy-in can be external and it can be internal. So let's talk about the exact buy-in from your perspective as you were going through the ranks. You said that was a challenge. How did you get internal buy-in, and then how did you get external buy-in?
It takes time. I think it's resilience, right? I think part of that is not wanting too much too soon. I think that, I've known a lot of people, or, and as well as people that have worked for me that want it all way too soon. And they want to move quick. It's all good to be aspirational. It's all good to have goals, but you got to be in the trenches. You got to do your time in the trenches. And I feel like, when I first became the VP and built my team, I was like, hey, this is a chance to show my CEO like that this team will follow me into freaking Mordor and
hey, shout out to Mordor.
Right? So like they got to follow you, and there's a reason these guys are following him. There's a reason he's able to be such a good manager. He can relate to them. He has the sales experience. Okay, but can he scale? Can he scale this team? Right? Can he go from being an individual contributor to being kind of a manager, VP, director level that can create a team and manage a high-performing sales team? And I think just by showing that first piece of it, and then obviously money comes in, money's on the board. If me and my team are writing sales, executives shut up. They don't really got much else to lean back on. Maybe, I didn't have some of the feedback that I would get in those is like, what's your plan? Where's the plan? Where's the forecast? Where's the, quarter by quarter whole year plan? And my whole, it was kind of a joke that we had running, but I was like, my plan is no plan. We just go into it. We like that. And I actually had a coach once that told me that's not a bad plan, because especially if things change so much, why plan? And I'm like, that's kind of what I'm going with, right? Like, so that was really it. I think just proof of concept, showing kind of resilience over time that, like, no matter how much you doubt me, no matter how much, you may doubt us and the way we do things, and, that typical, people at companies, those sales guys, they're just, having fun all the time, enjoying, and, they're loud and obnoxious. But you know what? Like, we're putting numbers on the board. Sales are coming in. The lights are on. We're not disrespecting anybody or anything, but we're trying to live our life and have a good time while doing it. And, that's what you got to do, right? So I think just over time, showing that I was capable of learning, growing, changing, and then as the business challenges came on, hurdle after hurdle, being able to still sell through that and manage through that. And, when they see that, over time, that you're capable of that, and that's where I think then you'll get some internal advocates. And you start becoming somebody that they'll pick to be on their team, That's something, our leadership did a few years ago, where we went around and the whole leadership team, and I was one of the top guys that people said, I think the question was, I think we did the EOS management training, if you know that one, but
I'm here
they were like, if you were to go start a company tomorrow, who here would you pick? And a lot of them picked me, and I was like, that just gave me so much confidence. Like, wow, these guys see what I'm doing every single day, right? So trial and error, getting the buy-in, getting some internal advocates, and then eventually people are going to be like, no, I want that guy. Like, if I go to war, I want to bring that guy with me.
I mean, that's what you want. That's the exact answer that I think every leader should be aiming for. To your point, if you're not getting that, there's some adjustments you need to make. And I actually want to go to what you said, business challenges, kind of mix it with like, probably felt like you were in Mordor itself, right? With some of these business challenges. So, like, what's one challenge that came up and you were like, well, I don't really know how we're going to solve this, and how did you react and respond to that situation?
I mean, there's things, there's almost like I always look at it like there's things I can control, like almost like customer facing things, and then there's things that I just simply can't control, right? Like, if there's we had a really toxic CTO that like was the founder of the company, and this guy was, for lack of better words, like he just wasn't he wasn't nice. He wasn't a nice person. So even him, like I would bring him a huge deal, the biggest deal we've ever seen. I'd be like, hey, I need you guys to like build XYZ feature in order for me to land this deal. And like there was times when, you know, he was also the guy that, you know, he has like 7 monitors around him and he's like typing code like a maniac, right?
Gosh.
But he would simply tell me to screw off. And I'm like, I'm your VP of sales. I'm bringing you deals that I can close. And I just need you to go build a couple things, you know, sales guy, just build a couple things, right? Like, and, you know, he would literally tell me to screw off. So it's like sometimes there's just toxic work environments and toxic people that you have to almost wait out, right? Like there was people at our company that left over this stuff, that quit over this stuff. And I'm like, this guy's going to dig his own grave one day. Like he can't keep this up. He can't treat people like this. He can't do this. And it's not good for the business, right? So that was like a big internal challenge for us where we were like, look, what one of our founders, C-suite level guys like aren't willing to work with us, aren't willing to help us grow the business like we need. And we got to kind of wait it out till we can kind of move on from this. And I would say that was a humbling experience because, like, I want to go. I want to grow this business. I want to, you know, bring on more deals and expand them and more MRR and all this. Right. And this guy's a big roadblock for me. So sometimes to wrap that up, that was like my experience. But there's just people that you won't get along with. There's people that you have to kind of put your best foot forward. Like they just don't like you. For whatever reason, he just didn't like me.
Just didn't vibe with you.
He was
that happens.
Young sales shithead, right? Like we don't like him for some reason. Yeah. So, you know, there's always going to be those kind of people in your life where you just kind of have to tough it out, put your best foot forward. Like never did I talk bad to him, disrespect him. I was always like professional. Hey, I'm just trying to help the business grow, right? Like so, I've had that with, you know, all kinds, whether it's C-level, other directors, other employees that kind of didn't see the mission, that didn't see the long-term kind of tunnel vision of the company and what we need. And, you know, you got to kind of get those people out of your organization. You got to get those people away from your company or you're not going to be able to grow like you want to. So I would say just, you know, picking the right people, the way you're dealing with people, you know, always putting your best foot forward and being professional, even if people don't like you. And like, just understand that not everybody's going to like you, right? So just be the best you can be, and it is what it is.
So this guy goes into 2 with like playbooks and things that you have maybe learned along the way, right? So you said that a lot of people maybe looking to get things done, maybe too soon, they're trying to be too advantageous, really. Yeah. You mentioned that, like, hey, some people may not like you, so there's some things there. But you mentioned those are some just struggles and challenges. What, like, do you have, like, a playbook for someone who's trying to move maybe too fast, too soon? And how can they be very patient and thorough in the work they're doing now so that they can shine later in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I was even just talking to one of our SDRs yesterday, right? And he was telling me about all his career goals and all that. And I was like, you know, that's amazing. That's awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and I'm going to help you get there as much as I possibly can. But don't take this time for granted, right? Like this time as an SDR, you know, this is like career development, but like character developing. Right? Like I told him a story about when I worked at my first ever call center. I got a job when I was 16 years old working at a call center. I was an opener. I was just doing prospecting. And I remember when I started after my first week, everybody came, like all the closers, there was like SDR AE, but opener closer type structure. And they were like, who's this guy, right? Like who's giving us these leads? They're so good. I want his leads. I want his meetings. Basically, I was the best opener they had ever seen. I had such great qualified meetings. Everybody was closing my deals and fighting over my deals. And I just was milking it. And when I made the switch, I was like, hey, eventually I got to be a closer, right? Like I want to make more money, I want more growth, I want more accountability, and I became a closer, and I wasn't the best. I was like almost bottom middle pack, and I was
what happened to me?
I was like, what is this, right? So I wanted to make that switch over, but then I was like, damn, like it's not as kind of glorious as I thought. And there was times when, like, maybe even in some companies, but like a top performing BDR, SDR at a bottom AE, they might be making around the same, right? So, I was like, damn, like it was really good on that side. I was living life. Like I learned a lot, but now that I've made this switch, like now it's real. And I remember I was only making commission. So if I didn't sell, I didn't make any money. And I was like, damn, this sucks. So, my time as that opener, though, because I was so good and I knew and efficient at what it helped me be a better closer. But it just took me longer to ramp up. And there was a stressful time there where, things weren't as smooth. So, all those things, the grind that you learn as an SDR, the cold calling, the daily habits, the consistency, the pipeline gen, the funnel, like, all those things like help you become a better AE. They help you become a better leader. They help you become a better VP. It all kind of comes right back down to that. Because if you can do that grit and grind of being an SDR, well, as an AE, I can be my own SDR, right? And as a manager or VP, I can coach those SDRs because I was there. I did those calls. Like I loved doing 200 calls a day. I was one of those psychos that loved cold calling, that just loved rejection. Like if I called somebody and they told me to screw off, I was like, yes.
You're like, let's go.
Let's go. I'm one step closer. I'm like, screw off where to, sir? Where are we going? Are you coming? Are you going to screw off with me? No? Oh, all right then. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I'll call you back.
Where does that come from, though?
Like even back in school, this is what I used to get kicked out of school for. This is what I used to get suspended for. It's just like yapping. Talking about, trying to entertain people, just yapping, talking, trying to be funny, that's just like was my whole personality in school. And like what teachers told me I would be a failure for, like you're going to get kicked out and be a loser if you keep doing this. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I'm just making people laugh. Like, you don't hear the whole class laughing at you? Like, that's because of me. Like, I'm entertaining these people. And now what do? I go and use all that, my voice and my kind of personality.
So that's different.
That's my career now, right? So that's kind of where it stems from. I've always been selling. I used to take all my sister's toys and stuff that she didn't want and go sell it in the front lawn. Like I that's kind of my whole thing. I always enjoyed selling and talking to people, and I understood the grit and the grind of what cold calling is. Like, the more meaningful conversations you have, the more deals you get, right? Like, so, you got to do the work.
What, before we go into like phase 3, I want to hear like, what all this stuff has done impacted for your career. One thing you've been talking about is how you have done the work yourself as an SDR AE, and now obviously you lead a team. How important has it been for you, or maybe you have a strategy or a system on this, to empower your reps to be better, but realizing sometimes the way that they're going to be better is not how you did it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Things are different too, right? Like, my 200 cold calls back in the day isn't the same back in the day. Isn't the same as like their calls now, right? Calling's a lot different. Calling's a lot harder, right? There's like challenges to getting people on that's what I sell, right? We sell Readymode. We sell the call center software that helps call centers get more people on the phone, right? So I know all about these challenges, right? But I understand that like no matter what, the fundamentals are still there. Right? Like you just got to be consistent. You got to be doing the work every day. You got to be doing a certain amount of calls, have a certain amount of leads in your funnel, have a certain amount of ops, following up with them, and as well as just having using your character, your charisma, your personality to build relationships with people on the phone. I think I have clients to this day, or clients that aren't even a client of mine anymore, that I got cold calling that we still talk. Right. Because they were like, you got my attention on that call. And that was like 10 years ago. And like, we're still friends to this day. So it's like you have to just like put that I'm making friends hat on. Like that's cold calling. Like call 100 people and try to make a friend. And once you do that, they're gonna listen to you. They're gonna help you out in a sense. And I even got that from somebody that I interviewed and made friends with. Afterwards, she hit me up and she's like, "Hey, I'm one meeting away from my target. Can you take a meeting?" And
you're like, "Yeah, sure." What?
I'm like, "Sure." She's like, "It actually is a good software. Like you and your team could probably use it, but I'm just reaching out for a favor." And I'm like, "Hey, you're a solid rep. Like, absolutely." I took the meeting. Yeah. I ended up buying her software because I was like, "This is good." Like, so again, but it all started with the relationship piece. And I remember I had a client, Simon. I called that guy every quarter for like 4 years. And I remember one quarter I didn't call him and he was like, "Where were you? Why didn't you call me? Like I was waiting for your call." He's like, "Jason, Vancouver." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh." And then eventually he signed it. He's still a client to this day, but it took me 4 years of calling him and relationship building.
Following up, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I just try to relay all that back down to the reps, right? Be like, "Look, I know it's not the same as what I was doing back in the day, right? Like your calls are a lot harder now. People, don't answer as much. They don't look at their email as much, right? They're not as responsive. They're really only going to take meetings and buy things that they really need. We're really on heavy inbound right now. We're trying to ramp outbound back up, but outbound was something that we built this entire business on. I didn't even know what marketing was or had anybody in marketing for years. Here we go. I was like, inbound leads, marketing leads. I'm like, what? Like, really?
Yeah.
We can spend money on that to generate more leads?
I think it's a lot of it is a learning lesson, right? For a lot of things, it's like you growth and you learn. Kind of leading to like as we kind of go towards the end and wrap this up. You're talking about all the things that you. Over time, it was a challenge, but you decided, I'm going to overcome it and learn. If you had to say like the number one thing that you have learned throughout this, going from an SDR to an SVP of Sales, what's been the biggest growth lesson that you've had that's impacted your career?
I mean, just to like, everything is sales. Everything. Like it's just
it really is when you break it down. No one can escape that.
From like every time, right? Like every week I'm on a meeting with my CRO. That's another thing. We brought on a CRO a couple years ago. So all this like building that I did for like 8 years with my CEO, and I had all his trust and all that. And then he brings in a CRO that's like, been there, done that, right? And he's really like, who's this shithead? And I'm like, then I'm like, okay, that whole buy-in thing, start from scratch. I'm like, now I got to get buy-in from this is my new boss. Like me, I'm like, hey, we're going to hire my boss because we want somebody on the revenue side that's operationally mature, that can really come in here and kind of grow us up. And me and my CEO were like, hey, for me, this is probably the best opportunity because I'm going to be able to learn from someone who's been a VP of sales, who is now a CRO. So I had to really humble myself, right? Because I'm like, hey, I have a new boss. We're hiring my new boss, and I've got to now show this guy what I'm capable of. And he's almost like, hey, what you've done up until now is very impressive, but startup and scale up are two different stages of a business. Are you the guy that can help us scale up now, right? So I had to kind of redefine myself and now pitch myself to this guy, right? Like every week he's like, how's the team? What are you looking at? What are the numbers? What's the conversion? What's the deal size, right? Like understanding what he looks at as a CRO. And every week I'm selling him, right? Every time we have an MBR, I'm selling him. QBR, I'm selling him. And I'm selling him on what I'm doing and how I'm planning the business and what we're doing over in sales, what works and what doesn't. So everything is sales. That's kind of what it comes down to, no matter what. I mean, even in your relationship at home, right? Like it's a sales. Don't say this to your partner, but it's a sales relationship, right? Like you're selling them on the kind of the dream, the vision of what I have for us in mind, right? And what I'm trying to do, and everything it comes down to. That's why, like, that time as an SDR, it goes back to that, is so valuable. That time in the trenches is so valuable. That's what I basically told my my SDR yesterday. I was like, look, man, just enjoy it and learn as much as you can and, like, work until you are bored. Work until you are that's sales. If you get really good at sales, it gets boring because you just do the same thing over and over and over again. Same pitch, same demo, same client, same territory, same problem, same challenges, right? And then now it's just about consistency. Well, can you do it every day? Well, can you do it for a year? Can you keep it up? How long can you keep it up now? So that's what I try to relay back down to the team. That's what I try to kind of stick with is, consistency is everything. Consistency over intensity. I use a lot of sales analogies and gym analogies because the gym and sales are so similar, right? Once you go to the gym and it's at first your form is off, you feel stupid, you're embarrassed, you're shy, you don't know what you're doing, the weights are light.
No idea what you're doing.
Right? As you go on, you realize that you're like, oh, this stuff, and then it just sticks with you. Now you know the form, the weight gets heavier, and that's all you really do in the gym. You get bored, so you get heavier weights, and then you keep pushing yourself. But it's the same motions, same exercises, and you're not going to see any progress if you're not consistent. So that's where the gym has trained me to be a great salesperson, and sales vice versa. And I always try to relate the two because, and even one helps the other. If you're in really great shape and you're working out and you're feeling good, you're going to be able to sell and you're going to be able to work harder and have more energy. And as a matter of fact, people respect you more. Like when I go to these conferences and I meet clients or people in person, they're like, damn, you got a nice arm there, man. You're
it's a big thing.
You work hard. They know because it's like wearing the war patches on your
discipline.
They know this guy works. This guy takes care of himself, right? So that's where I would say for people in sales, first of all, enjoy the time in the trenches. I just said something today. It's raining up here, where I am. It's really odd to rain here in the summer because it's usually 40 degrees Celsius. I'm Canadian, sorry, which is over 100 Fahrenheit. So, it's desert heat here. When it rains, it's really odd, but you have to embrace that. They say it up here, the climate, we need it because there's a lot of fires that happen here, but we do need it. But you need that time in the trench. You need that rain. You need that kind of work ethic, grind, and learn from that because that's what's going to help you in the sales process, as a leader, as a manager, in your life, wherever. That's why I love sales so much.
I love that, man. I think that's an excellent note to end on, and I think also as well, once you realize life is sales, you treat it differently. I definitely vouch for the gym. I would go 5 times. I'm actually going 7, but I've included cardio in there as well. So it's actually been fundamentally game changer for me.
I've been seeing you got the fist pump going. I've been seeing you, man.
Hey, look, I'm getting after it, man. I'm locked in. I'm locked in for the gym right now, and I absolutely love it. And I'm glad that you're also involved in it as well. That having that first impression by showing that you take care of it's subconscious. It's important, but showing that you take care of yourself, it shows that the client you'll take care of them.
Yep.
Immediate, right? So I encourage everyone to get on it if you can. And as we wrap here, what are your final shout outs and mentions that you have?
Yeah, I mean, just be grateful. Just be grateful for the time. I think that's something that I'm really, you asked me today when we hopped on first, how are you? And I'm everything is really great. You know what I mean? That's what I'm focusing on now is there's people, there's wars going on, right? There are people, a lot of people are negative and complain and they don't really appreciate their situation. And just look at what you have, right? If you've got whatever it is in all aspects, you've got a family that loves you, right? Or you got people that love you and you wake up every single day and you're healthy and you have all your limbs and you can breathe.
Great.
Come on, man. There are people that literally can't, that don't, right? I think that no matter what, it's just about perspective. And if you can be, grateful for what you've got and, kind of relay that gratitude to people around you and, have that kind of attitude, that attitude of gratitude, I think that's going to resonate with people and people are going to understand that and see that and, just kind of make it sounds so cliche, but make the most, right? We're all here, we've got this great opportunity and great situations that we're all in. Even when you're at the bottom of it, that's like another, like what I was saying about wanting it too fast. Like, just enjoy the moment, enjoy the trenches, just understand that's so good for character development, and just be grateful that you even have that opportunity in the first place, because it's tough out there, man. It's a harsh and cruel world.
It is. It is a harsh and cruel world, but the thing is, the skills that you're learning are going to only develop you and make you better in the long run, and that's exactly what we listened to and heard here today. So thank you so much, Jason, for hopping on, giving us some insights and guidance, and we'll see you on the next episode. And that wraps up another episode of the On the Record podcast with my guest, Jason, and here are the key takeaways for you. Master the fundamentals. I said it in the beginning, we said it in the middle, I'm going to say it at the end. Don't rush through your SDR role or whatever intro role that you have. Build the foundation for your sales career so that it helps you as a leader. Everything is sales in takeaway number 2. And so all the things you learn in sales, you can apply inside of the business and outside of the business. And consistency over intensity. I actually really like this one because, yes, you could be intense for a week, but the person who's consistent every single day and just does that every single day will beat the person who had full out bursts in intensity for a week. So remember, as a leader, how can I get my team to be more consistent so they can be more successful? So thanks for tuning in to On the Record podcast. Again, I'm your host. We'll catch you on the next episode. And I hope that you enjoy it as a sales leader and you're learning everything you can to take yourself to the next level. See you, everybody.